Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day out there. Chad Allen here, and welcome back to Firechild Video. Well, you see it on your screen. That's what we're going to be doing today. We are going to attempt to create a photorealistic, or at least a very ultra-realistic looking football render using only Blender's internal renderer. We're going to do this with good lighting, good texturing, a fairly good base model, and end up with a good final product. Fingers are crossed there. But here's a look at what we're going to be creating. Maybe not this exact design with the footballs in the background, but that was just to spice up the preview render. But that's what we're going to be creating. You're going to notice I'm going to be talking kind of fast, and that's because we have a lot of ground to cover. And I want to keep this in one chunk video. It might not happen. We might need to break this video up into two parts, but I'm going to do my best to get you all the information you need so that you can start creating some realistic renders. Let's get started by creating a new scene. Get rid of that. Okay, now we're not going to need our default cube, so we can go ahead and X, delete that. And we're not going to need our default light either, so we can get rid of that. And now let's go into excuse me. Let's go into side view by pressing 3 on the number pad, 5 to toggle orthographic, then hit Shift A, Mesh, UV Sphere. Right there. Let me zoom in here. Now this is going to be the base of our football. But what we need to do is we need to rotate it to where the poles of this sphere are laying horizontally. So to do that real easy, since we're in side view, we want to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. So R90, enter. And there we go. Now what we can do is we can hit S and Y and begin stretching this out to start getting that oval shape of the football. Something about right there for now. But the problem is it's too oval. See, our football has to have a little taper on the ends. So the way we're going to get that taper is by using a tool in Blender called proportional editing. You'll find the button for it right here. It has 1,000,001 uses, some great uses for creating, say, terrain or mountain scenes, things like that. But it'll also help us get this taper effect on our football. So we can either hit O on the keyboard or just go down here and tell it enable. Make sure it's set to smooth. And then if we go into edit mode by hitting tab, and then we can hit A to deselect everything and just select this corner point here. And then when we click and drag, you'll see this circle shows up. You can roll your center mouse wheel to make it larger or smaller. I'm going to keep it about right there and then just drag over some just to give us a nice taper. And then do the same thing on the other side, like so. If you have some reference images, you can load those into Blender, and that'll help you get the proportions exactly. I'm kind of just winging it. I have a football sitting on my desk beside me that I was going to photograph, but my camera quit working on me, so I didn't get to do that. I looked around on Google, and I didn't want to take any risk of copyright infringement or anything like that, so I'm not uploading any of those either. Let's go on and make our seams by hitting 1 to go into front view, and as you can see, in our preview, we've got 4 seams on a football, 2 going vertically and 2 going horizontally that all meet in the middle. This is real easy to create in Blender. What we need to do is go into edit mode, and we need to shift over into face select. I just hit Control Tab, by the way, to change my selection modes. I'm in face mode. You can also click these 3 buttons down here, vertex, edge, and face. And what we need to do before we do anything else is we need to turn off proportional editing. So we'll go down here and we'll disable it, because we don't want to use it anymore. If we forget to turn that off, you're going to have problems later. And we also want to turn off this limit selection to visible, because we want to be able to select background geometry from the front view. So what we can do is hit B to box select, and now what we need to do is we need to select a quarter at a time, and then we're going to extrude it. Now make sure you got all the faces. You zoom over, you can see that we've got all the way across, which is good. And then what we need to do is hit E to extrude, and then hit escape. And now what we want to do is we want to scale it, but we want to scale them along the normals. So if we hit Alt-S, then we can either drag the mouse, or since we want all 4 quarters to be scaled exactly, we can hit, let's say, about 0.04. And that's about it. We scaled it 0.04 Blender units. That's all we really need. So now what we can do is hit A to deselect, and do that for the other 3 sides. So B to box select, select the quarter, E to extrude, escape, Alt-S, 0.04, enter. A to deselect, 2 more sides to go. B for box select, grab a quarter, make sure you got everything, E to extrude, escape, Alt S, 0.04, enter, A to deselect, B to box select, and box select this. Make sure you got everything, E to extrude, escape, Alt S, 0.04, enter. Now if we go back into object mode, you can see we're starting to get our seams there. We can go ahead and set shading to smooth, and then add a subdivision surface. Add modifier, subdivision surface, kick it up to level 2 or maybe even level 3. And you'll see now we're starting to get that football. However, one last thing we need to do. If we zoom in here, you can see this gap right at the center point is way too large. So it's really easy to fix. We'll just tab back into edit mode and we'll go control tab, go to edge mode, let's deselect everything. And then all we really need to do is we need to slide this inner circle, this inner loop. And if we limit selection to visible, we can Alt right click on that loop, and then we just want to slide it in, and that'll make our center gap much smaller. So we can hit Control E, select edge slide, and you can see now if we just move the mouse, well, it can be a little touchy sometimes. So let's kind of get it right about there. And we can probably go in a little bit more with it if we need to later, but that's actually not too bad right now, because you want a little gap there where it all meets together. Let me get a drink real quick. Okay, so that is the basic football shape. I would render it right now to show you where we're at, but there's no lights in the scene, so you're not going to see anything anyway. The next thing we need to make, now this is the one that's probably going to take the most work as far as modeling goes, and that's going to be creating our laces. Now these laces in this preview render aren't perfect. I forgot to assign a material to it, and I didn't do any texturing because I got so caught up with this model. So ignore these laces, but this is basically what we're going to be creating. Let's go ahead and let me just pause for a second, and then we'll get started on the laces. Alright, so apologize for that. Let's go ahead and get into modeling those laces. What we're going to do is we're going to use a new mesh for this. We're going to hit Shift A, and we're going to create, I have an idea. You know, we might try and create the laces all part of the same. No. Let's stick to, I was going to try something brand new, but we don't have time for experimentation right now. So I'll try it myself later, and if my theory works correctly, then I'll post an updated tutorial, or at least an extra tip later on. What I'm doing is I'm scaling the cube down. If I hit Z to go into wireframe and go into side view, I can scale it down a whole bunch because we're going to use this basically for our laces. So bring it up here, scale it down on the Z, we can flatten it out because our laces are going to be pretty flat. About like that for now. And hit 7 to go into top view. Scale it on the X to bring it out to, you know, about how wide our laces are going to be. And one lace. Now again, reference images come in handy right here. So if you have reference images to use, I suggest you use them to get the laces exactly where you want them to be. I'm just going to kind of wing it for the purpose of this tutorial. I'm also going to, oops, sorry, bump the mic there. I'm going to scale it on the Y. Zoom in here, and what I'm also going to do is I'm going to select our base mesh, and I'm going to turn off the visibility of subsurf for now, just to make it easier to see. And we can position somewhere right in between these two vertices. You'll see why in a minute. Go to side view and position it up here. Okay, now what we need to do is tab into edit mode, and we need to add a loop cut right down the middle of this mesh. So if we hit Control R, enter, left click, enter, and we've created a loop cut right down the middle. What we can do now is we can lift this loop cut up, and you'll see it's going to create an arc, which is what we want because our laces are going to arc across the top. And then what we can do is go into face select mode, grab this end face, rotate it on the Y, and then extrude it down, like so. You can probably go into top view and see a little better. Oh, come on now. Things run a lot slower when you're using screen capture. Then we're going to do the same thing for this face, rotate it, E to extrude and bring it down. So now, turn off. You'll see it comes across and goes down into our mesh, which is good, but it's a little sharp edges, and we want to kind of smooth it out. So we're going to add a subdivision surface, kick it up to level 2, maybe even 3, and set it to smooth. Probably set it back down to 2 now. And there we go. There's the basic idea behind our laces. Now, of course, we're going to have 2 separate laces running the along the seam once we're done, but that's a start. So we can go into side view here, Z, and basically all we're going to do is hit Shift D to duplicate. Actually, you know what we can do? Let me delete that one. What we can do is we can Alt D to where I need to stop experimenting. I just need to stick with what I've done. Okay, sorry about that. We're gonna Shift D to duplicate it, position another one. Actually, probably, yeah. You know what? Let's put this one here, and let's move this one over about there, and then Shift D. And all we're doing is making our duplicates of our laces. Try and space them out as best you can. Shift D. Shift D. And you can space them out as you see fit. Just G and grab it. So this one can also come over this way a little bit. Bring this one in a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 2 more to go. Shift D. And Shift D. Okay, so that's the basics of our laces. They're not spaced out perfectly, but you can spend the time and do that. What I'm going to do next is hit 7 to go into top view, select our football mesh, and tab to go into edit mode. Now, what you see here and what we're about to do is we're about to cut the holes in the mesh in order to create the little holes where our laces are going to go through, because a real football has holes cut for the laces, right? That's kind of self-explanatory. But what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to add a few loop cuts in here. So let's go into Edge Select, and then we hit Control R, and we want to put a loop cut about halfway between. We don't need one here, but what we want is we want an edge in between every lace. So any lace that doesn't have a seam, an edge in between it, we want to add an edge. Just like that. That's all we needed to do there. And now what we can do is go back into Face. And I'm going to start off, I'll show you how to do this bottom lace, and then I'll pause it, and I'll go ahead and do the others because it's kind of repetitive. Okay, so what we can do, come on, cooperate. What we can do, we're in Face Select mode. We can right-click to select this face, and if we turn back on our subsurface so we can see it a little better, delete that face, and we want to hit Delete, or hit X, and select Faces, and you'll see we've got a hole, but it's a little too large. So if we Alt-click, Alt-click, well, what is it doing? Oh, yeah. Go back into Edge Select, and then hit Alt-click on the edge, and that'll select the entire edge. And what we can do is hit E to extrude, hit Escape, and then we can hit S to scale this new edge down, position it. Now we can start selecting individual edges, start moving them into place just to give us what we need. All right, now if we Alt-click and extrude again by hitting E, and if we move it down on the Z, good, you'll see it creates some depth in there, which is good. But now what we need to do is we need to continue tweaking these edges here, bringing them in, closing it off, because we don't want too big of a gap in there. And if we go Z, we can scroll over, we can select that bottom one, E to extrude, S to scale it in, and Z, and there you go. Now we've got a pretty good looking hole cut in our mesh for our lace to fit through. And that's the exact same thing you're going to do for the entire mesh. So to recap, Alt-Tab, we'll go into Face, we'll delete the face where that lace is, and go back into edge select, alt click that edge, E to extrude, hit escape, scale it down, position it into place, you know, grab each edge here, position it, position it, position it, and kind of try and keep these straight too. You don't want too many weird angles. Something like that. And we can also, yeah. All right, and now we can alt click, extrude, and bring it down on the Z, and then extrude, scale it in, and if we select the outer edge again, we can go in here and just grab individual points, bring them in a little bit, just kind of tweak it, play with it till you get something right. And, you know, there you go. There's the first lace ready to go. And that's why I said I'm going to go ahead and pause here, finish up the other laces so you don't have to sit through that over and over again, because we've got 8 laces to do. Well, 7 more to go. So that's total 14 times I got to do that. And so let me go ahead and pause, and I'll be right back after I've punched all the holes. We'll see you in a second. All right, so as you can see, we went ahead and finished up the holes for the different ones, and you'll notice that by doing them each individually like this, you get a little bit of variation, a little bit of difference between the holes, and it just adds a little more to the realism. I also went ahead and I added the 2 laces that go down the middle, and I did that in the exact same way as I made these laces over the side, and that's by creating a cube, scaling it down into place, putting the end caps, you know, on either end of our mesh. You know, this back one could probably, well, obviously use a little adjustment. We need to curve it down some, and then tab, and then I just added a loop cut in the middle, brought the loop cut up, wow, so I could give it that arc, and then added a subdivision surface. And so pretty basic stuff. I didn't want to waste your time with that one. I'm sure you guys can figure it out. So we've got that. Our model is pretty much, zoom out here, it's pretty much ready to go. We need to set up our camera, set up our world, and then we can get on with everything else. So let's go ahead and first of all set up our camera and zoom out here. Let's go ahead and move our camera. Well, we could probably put it in front view. 0. And then zoom it in and bring it over here, and probably bring it off to the side just a little bit, and rotate it over maybe a little bit like that, and bring it over here, you know, something like that, so you can see maybe. And it's all about give and take, so something like that is fine. We'll go back into top view, and now what we can do is first of all go into our world tab over here and make a little room so we can see. And what we want to do is we want to set up a gradient for our sky. So we'll turn on paper sky and blend sky, and then we can set our horizon color to pretty much to black, and then set our zenith color to, you know, a grayish color. That's just a quick and easy way. We could set up a plane and make a seamless backdrop. Would probably give us even better results, but I'll leave that up to you guys. I'm just kind of trying to get to the meat and potatoes, the serious stuff, and that's the lighting and texturing. So next thing, we turn on ambient occlusion, set it to multiply instead of add, and we're going to leave it on ray trace. We're going to have it, yeah, 10. We're going to turn these samples up. We'll actually change this sampling to adaptive, and then we'll turn the samples up to 10. Double them. So yeah, everything else looks pretty good. We've got that. Now let's set up some light. Now I'm going to light this. There's several different avenues of thought as far as lighting is concerned. A lot of people swear by using spot lamps. Others use area lamps. You know, there's a million different. I highly recommend looking up photography and lighting for photography, and study that for a while, because all of the theories on lighting in photography is the same as it is in 3D. So study that, and you'll have a good background for lighting here. I got to be honest with you, lighting is probably my weakest subject in Blender, so This may not be the perfect lighting setup, but I have experimented around with it, and it does work very well. So let me get a drink of water real quick. All right, so let's go ahead and create our first lamp. We're going to be using an area lamp, so hit Shift, highlight it, Shift A, and go down to lamp, and right here, area lamp. And we can grab that, move it over behind the camera, and if we go into side view, we can rotate it up to point at, well, actually, let's grab it and lift it up some, and then rotate it, go into front view, rotate it again, and going back into top view, rotate it again just to get it to look at the football. And then we can set it up. If we go to our area lamp settings here, we need to bring the energy way down. Let me see, where's my settings? I experimented with this before, so we're going to take our energy down a lot, say 0.6. I'm going to set our distance to a very low number. We're going to set that to 8. And we're going to make sure size, we're going to set it up to 15. So pretty big light. I might adjust that later. That looks kind of off. And we're going to turn on ray shadow. And then adaptive QMC is good. Samples, we're going to kick that up like crazy to 16. Actually, you know what? Let's go 15. All right, so maybe bring the size down on our light to about 10. I don't know. You can play around with that setting, but yeah. Okay, so that looks good for now. I'm going to start rambling, guys. I'm telling you, I do that a lot. Create another area lamp, grab it, move it over the other side of the camera, about there, maybe a little further back. Go into side view, bring it up, rotate it into place, just like we did a second ago. And top view, rotate it into place. Front view, rotate it into place. And we're actually going to move this light back some. So move it here, rotate it. Probably move this one back some as well. Okay, so that's looking good. This new lamp, we're going to give it an energy of 1. Energy's good. Distance, we're going to bring that down to about 16. And this one we're actually going to bring back even further, about right there. So pretty far back. Maybe a little further than that, actually. Bring this one back a little further as well. Once we start doing our render previews, we'll be able to tell how we're doing here. We can also give it just a slight warm color. Don't go too crazy, but just give it a slight warm color. And we can also give this one just a slight cool color, very slight. Okay, so back to this one. Let's see, what am I missing? I'm missing something here. Okay, we're going to kick the size up to about 7. A little bit smaller than the other one. Turn on ray shadow, give it samples, kick those samples up. Important. All right, and one more lamp we need to create. So Shift A, lamp, area lamp. Like I said, guys, I know you're sitting there going, man, this guy is stumbling through this. Bring this one back some. And go to front view. Bring it over. Yeah. Okay, so we're on this lamp now. Let's go ahead and rotate it into place. And we're going to give this one an energy of 3. We're going to give it a distance of 15. And a size of about, let's say about 6 or so. And we can actually bring this one back a lot and bring it down some. It's going to be kind of like a rim light, just to give us a little separation. We'll see how that looks in a second. Let's go ahead and do a render just to see what it looks like. It's going to take a while, so let me just pause and pick it up. All right, so there we go. There it is rendered. You'll see we've got, some okay lighting. It could still use quite a bit of work, but we're going to go ahead and just leave the lighting there because I'm just really bad with lighting. I need to practice a lot at lighting, so I'm not going to pretend to be the authority on all things lights. I am going to admit my faults, and we're going to move on into some texturing because that's something I'm a little bit better at. So moving on. But I mean, you have to admit, that's not horrible lighting. There's worse lighting setups out there, isn't there? And a lot of the problem is we haven't added any material yet, so it's going to get better. So let's go ahead, click that, and let's add a new material. Let's go Material tab, hit New. As I state in all my tutorials, be sure to label your materials. So let's go ahead and set this to Ordinaire and bring the intensity up, and we can go ahead and just give it a random color for now, just kind of a placeholder before we do our texturing. Something in there. Specular, can kick that up just a bit, change it over to Fong, and bring the hardness up, like something like that. We'll play with those settings and get something better. Okay, so that's pretty much it for that. Let's go to our texture tab, New. We're going to label our texture. This is going to be color. And now what we're going to need to do before we do any more texturing is we need to UV unwrap this. So if we go with 7 to go into top view, what we need to do is need to set some seams. So you'll see, now that I clicked into wireframe, you'll see I didn't do all the circles. I was trying to skip out on that. But, you know, hey, I gave up my secret. However, the way we're going to set up our render, you're not going to see too much of this part of the ball, so, you know, sue me. Tab to go into edit mode, and we want to select this seam right down the middle. So Alt, right click, and you'll see it selected that. Z, and you'll see. And then if we hit Control 7, that takes us to bottom view, and we can go in here, hold down Alt Shift, and click right in that middle part again. If we hit Z, you'll see what we did. We selected the loop that goes right down the middle of the football. So when we unwrap it, we can mark the seam by hitting Control E, mark seam, and now if we split this view here, we can change this one over to UV image editor and create a new image. I'm going to leave this one, that's about right. Oops. That's alright, so then we'll select everything over here, hit U to unwrap it, and you'll see, there we go. You know, we can actually create a new image here. We'll call it 2000 by 2000, and then go over here and unwrap again. Let's actually delete all the, okay. Well, that's fine. We can work with this. Let's see, unwrap. All right, good. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to select this mesh here. You can use box select, but nope. Let's use box select. Select this bottom mesh. We're just kind of cleaning this up. And see. Just select that. There we go. And we can grab it, move it over, and rotate it until it's straight. And then scale it up just to make it look a little better. Make sure it's all inside. And then we can do the same thing for this one. Select the whole mesh. R to rotate until it's straight. Scale it out on the Y just to give it that shape again. Now this wasn't a very good UV unwrap, but it's gonna work because we're already at 30 minutes of this thing and I don't feel like going back and editing it, so this will work for what we're gonna do. So, you know, sue me if it's not perfect. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to export this out into GIMP or into Photoshop. I'm using Photoshop. I paid for it. I might as well use it. So to do that, we'll go UVs, UVs, export UV layout. And then if we go down over here, we can change the format to encapsulate PostScript or EPS. So we're going to save it as an EPS and just save it to my, well, actually, let's save it to Blender Football Revised. And we'll save it in here as football tutorial UV.eps and export UV layout. And now if we go into Photoshop, we can file, open, and I'm actually going to go into this football tutorial UV. We're going to open that up. RGB color, everything looks good. And you'll see when it opens in Photoshop, we've got our UVs. If we drop the opacity here, we'll be able to see through it. And now what we need to do is we need to get a football texture in the background. Now I actually happen to have one. Hang on. Okay, yeah. I actually have a football texture. Let's get it from my desktop here. Where is it? Football texture. I have a football texture that I created in Photoshop a while back. I'll include it in the download, the dot blend and the zip for this tutorial. It's basically what I did is took a texture that I had taken a photograph of an actual football, and I shrank it down. If we zoom in, you can see we've got the actual things, and then in Photoshop I used Pattern Maker and just created a pattern, and that's where we are. So what we can do is go ahead and drag this onto our image, and it's actually lined up pretty well, come to think of it. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to select our UV layer, take our magic wand tool, turn that off for a second, just click out here, and then click on our texture layer and hit delete. So what that's going to do is it's going to put the texture only where, drag this to the top, only where our UV map is, and that's pretty good. So that's our basic color map. You can go in and add the white stripes here. You can also add the white stripes in inside of Blender if you wanted to as an extra material, which is how I'm going to do it. Or you can not add the stripes at all, as some footballs don't have the white stripes. It's completely up to you. If you want to do some crazy designs, you know, here's your layout. Here's where you can do them. You can add a name in there, you know, right along here, right along there. Whatever you want to do. I'm just going to do a basic texture, and I'll let you guys surprise me with your creativity. So we're going to go ahead and save that as PNG. And we'll create a new folder here, and we'll call it tutorial. And we'll save this as football color texture. And all right. And now what we need to do is we need to use this same layer, and let's actually duplicate it. And we'll call this one normal map. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to obviously create a normal map out of this. Now, there is a filter from NVIDIA. You can just Google NVIDIA normal map filter, and you can download it, install it into Photoshop. I believe there's a normal map filter for GIMP as well. Just do a Google search, and it'll make some fairly decent normal maps for you. Won't work in all cases, but it'll work fairly well in our case. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go Image Adjustments, Desaturate, because I want a black and white image, and then Image Adjustments, Levels. And basically what I'm creating here is just your basic bump map. If you don't want to make the normal map, what you can do is do this, tweak your levels so you get a high contrast black and white image, like so, and then save this out and title it bump and use it as a bump map, or you can go this next step and create your normal map. I'll actually do one of each. So let's go ahead and save this one as, let's see, textures, tutorial. We're going to save this as football bump map and a PNG because we want that alpha. And, you know, if you're going to do the normal map way, then you don't have to do this save. I'm showing you that it can work either way. So now we can go filter, NVIDIA Tools, normal map filter. And you can see it already generates us a little preview here. Alpha channel setup. We can actually 5x5 or 7x7 wrap. Something like that. And it's really a simple, play around with these settings if something looks funky, but I gotta be honest with you, I haven't toyed around with this NVIDIA normal map filter too much. I tried it in a test render that I did. It worked awesome, so I figured I'd show it to you here, but that's also why I rendered out the bump map in case I screw something up with these normal maps. But this is an option for you, so just hit OK. Let it do its thing, which might take just a little bit. It gives me a chance to get a drink of water. Perfect. And now you see, if we zoom in a little bit, we've got a pretty cool normal map going on. Now this might work, it might not. We're going to find out. We're going to save this one. And we're going to go into Textures, Tutorial, and we're going to save it as Football Normal Map. Also as a PNG. Save it. And let it save, which is taking a little time. All right, now we can bounce back into Blender. Here we are. Okay, so in our UV image editor, we can image, open, and you might not even really need to do this, but I'm doing it anyway. And let's see, revised, textures, tutorial, and color. And you'll see that everything lines up, so we're looking good. We did a good job in Photoshop. And now we can go back to our texture. We actually don't need this anymore. Oh, let's close that. All right, Z0. Okay, we actually don't need, okay, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. In our texture tab, we can change this to image or movie, and it's actually, we already labeled it color. So if we go down to open, actually, yeah, we can go to revise or tutorial, select our color texture, open it, set the coordinates to UV, and maybe bring down the color here. We don't want it quite so high, somewhere in the 0.8 range, somewhere in there. Just bring it down a little bit. And that's it for color. Now we can add, I'm actually going to try the normal map way first, see what happens. We can add a new, we'll call this normal, image or movie, and open. Go to wherever we saved it, load our normal map. You see it shows up there. Change the coordinates to UV. And if we scroll down here to influence, we can turn off the color diffuse and turn on geometry settings normal. Now we need to bring this setting down. We don't want it quite so high. Somewhere in there. We'll do a few test renders, see what it looks like. But let's go ahead and test render now. And I'm going to pause while it renders because it's going to take just a little bit of time. So there you go. Now we've got, you can see the little bumps coming through. We've got a cool texture going on, and this is actually looking really, really good. We can tweak with the lighting setting a little bit and get a little more of a rim light in here, so we have a little more of a hot spot on there. We can let's grab this light, maybe bring it up some, and we can bring it in a little bit. Toy with the lighting, get something you like. You can also use spotlights. One other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kick this normal up back to 1. A lot of times you're going to have to play with the normal setting so you get something you like. Also, as I was saying before, you can also, if you don't want to use the normal stuff, you can always go in here and use that bump map texture we created. Now, no promises it's going to look as good, but let me go ahead and render this one and show you the difference. All right, so here's our rendered with the bump map texture we created, and here it is with the normal map. So you see the difference right off the bat, so it's actually the normal mapping to me looks fan-freaking-tastic. That looks awesome. So we're going to stick with the normal mapping. I actually already went back and reset it up. We're at about 40 minutes, so this is the longest tutorial I've ever done, which you'll notice I'm starting to stutter and mumble a little bit because I've never done a tutorial this long. So very quickly before we leave, let me show you how to set up the white stripes if you choose to put the white stripes on the ball. So what we can do is go back into our material settings and go into edit mode over here, go into face select, and if we go into top view, we can include our background geometry, deselect everything, and then just pick the faces where you want your white stripe to be. I want mine to be right here, so we can hit C and just paint on that stripe where we want it, like so. And then do the same thing. See, so we're 1, 2, 3, 4. So do the same thing for the back side. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna do it right here. Paint it across, select all those faces, and now what we want to do, we want to go over here and create a new texture and hit right here. We'll label this one white stripe and click assign. Now if we change the color here, to a white color. Tab to go back. You see we've got a whitish color. Well, it didn't take. Okay. Let's try that again. There we go. You see we got a whitish color, and it looks pretty good. We can also go over here, go to our color, and delete that one because we're not using it. So all we have, move that one up, is our normal map for this one. So we'll still get the bumpiness in there, but not the colored texture. So let's render that. Pause. All right, so there you go. We've got a cool football texture. It took us less than an hour to make it. There's some more, you can keep going into much more detail if you wanted to. You can play around with the lighting some more, play around with the texture so you get something you like, make your own football texture, take some photographs, spend an eternity in Photoshop, give it some design here, add this stitching that goes around here, which I didn't add in this tutorial. I'll include some examples in the zip file that I'm going to upload for this tutorial over on firechildvideo.blogspot.com. I'll throw a link up here somewhere if you're watching on YouTube. And on the website, you'll have a link so you can download the blend file. You can download the zip with all the textures that I created. And you can tweak them, change them, use them, to your heart's content. I'm going to go ahead and stop now because I'm running out of things to say. I've never quite done a tutorial this long before. So I'm just going to say my name is Chad Allen. You've been watching Firechild Video Blender Tutorials. Have a good one, guys. I've got another tutorial planned coming very soon and some other very cool stuff that's probably a little outside of the box. I got a bet with a friend of mine. His name's Big D, and I don't have any video preview to show you, but he and I made a bet that... well, you see, he's a marksman, and he claims to be an amazing shot, so I'm putting him to the test. I'm going to shoot that video. I'll be uploading it as soon as we do it. We're going to shoot it tomorrow, so as soon as I can upload it to the computer, render it out, and get it on YouTube, you can check that out. It's a $100 bet. Let's see if I'm about to lose $100, or if Daniel can pull off the impossible. So that's just a little hint of what we're doing. We're more than just graphics here. We like to have some fun. So fun video coming, and then another tutorial after that. Once again, my name is Chad Allen. Thank you guys for watching. Check out the website. We've got a lot of free stuff coming up. I've got some wallpapers I'm about to post using this idea. And I will see you guys on the flip side. Take it easy.